And to begin off this panel discussion, the topic will be building consumer trust with blockchain. Please help me call upon the first panelist for this session, Mr. Sugata Roy, MD and CEO of Arodek India. Mr. Roy is the MD and CEO of Arodek India, as I just mentioned, and he has over 15 years of consulting experience and has shaped several businesses, including ERP, business intelligence, and analytics for PwC, Accenture, and Capgemini. Mr. Roy has been the chief technical architect for many solutions across USA, UK, Australia, Middle East, and India technology market. He has also led large number of assignments for various global customers across industry verticals, such as manufacturing, retail, fashion, banking, IT, ITES, chemicals, and consumer goods. Mr. Roy is a great inspiration and motivation for others. Please help me welcome our next panelist, Mr. Damodar Sahu, Consulting Partner and Head Blockchain, Manufacturing and Technology and Communications, SBUs, Wipro Limited, Bangalore, India. Please help me introduce him to you. Mr. Sahu is the thought leader in the space of IoT, digital blockchain, industrial IoT, and aftermarket services. Currently, Mr. Sahu plays the role of a blockchain solution to target clients and advises his clients to accelerate business outcomes with the focused values, modeling, blockchain, digital read lines, and analysis. He drives sales and business development for blockchain and opens up hunting accounts, business contacts in existing and new accounts in North America. And to moderate this session, can I please have a round of applause for Mr. Shravan Shetty, Director of Fintech, KPMG, India. Thank you so much, and please help me introduce him to you as well. He has more than 13 years of a diversified experience, including 3 years as a CEO of a design-to-order company having global presence. Mr. Shetty has advised clients across industries ranging from banking to logistics. He has been associated with blockchain space for the past couple of years and has worked with the government and private institutions to identify key areas where blockchain technology can play a vital role. He has experience in setting up an accelerator or launching challenges to engage with startup ecosystem, experienced in conceptualizing, planning for expansion across new geographies and sectors. He's an experienced professional in joint venture agreements with international companies and pre-acquisition due diligence. Mr. Shetty has deployed revenue enhancement and cost reduction solution from conceptualization to actual realization in the PL across sectors ranging from pharmaceutical to capital goods. Mr. Shetty has won Aditya Birla Scholarship in 2005 for academic and leadership excellence, which is awarded to 10 students across top 4 IIMs. Mr. Shetty, I would request you now to kindly take over the session. Thank you.
Hi all. Good evening, and it's great to see such a big audience for the last session. So I will try and make it as interesting as we could. So as you know, as we just introduced, that the session today is about how consumer trust can be built using blockchain. What we would spend, probably I'd spend about 5 minutes of the time to do one thing, which we've been doing these sessions across, and we've realized that it becomes important for me to put blockchain into context. So first point being that there's a difference between cryptocurrency and blockchain. When we talk about the origins of blockchain do come from cryptocurrency. So what do I mean by cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency, as I'm sure everybody in this room must have heard about Bitcoin. So that's an example of cryptocurrency. So where did it all start with? It started with the concept that somewhere money right now, the transaction that happens with money, there are too many intermediaries who actually do the job of providing trust between 2 or 3 individuals. So that was the genesis from where cryptocurrency came in. And while there are many drawbacks of that, which I don't want to go into right now, but one of the key aspects that came across when this cryptocurrency started, the implementation of cryptocurrency started, was the whole platform on which it was built, which is called the blockchain. So what a lot of people realize that while there are some drawbacks, one of the biggest benefit that a cryptocurrency does is to build trust between two parties which might not know each other. And that had multiple applications across sectors. And what fundamentally then has happened over the past 2 to 3 years is where a lot of applications which are based on this underlying technology, which is blockchain, which powers various cryptocurrencies, is now being taken up by various industries to see that we use them and build. We are right now not there. As of now, of course, those examples are being built, the POCs are being built, where we are able to get efficiency. And over a period of time, we'll be seeing intermediaries moving out of the whole value chain. The perfect example why this is happening is because blockchain has effectively bought the end provider close to the consumer. One of the issues we had seen is across the chain, there are a lot of intermediaries required just to provide not just product, but services all the way to the consumer. Through a blockchain, what we are seeing is a lot of applications where this intermediary requirement is getting reduced. To start with, the way we'll be looking at this whole discussion going forward is to look at first, what are those tenets of blockchain which helps the consumer. To start with, one area where we are seeing a lot of application, especially in the services sector, which is in terms of customer identity. So a lot of effort that we've seen, especially when it comes to the BFSI domain, is around how do I see my identity protection is done and my identity authentication is done without having a lot of intermediaries required. So a few POCs that we currently are doing, and we are seeing a lot of interest across BFSI space, is in terms of getting your onboarding and KYC done through use of technologies like blockchain. So that's one area that is really picking up. We'll discuss it further, but another, when I look at in terms of product, another area where we see a lot of space for both efficiency increase and in terms of productivity is around supply chain. And Damodar, if you could elaborate of the work that you've done in that area.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Shravan. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, for me, disruption means what? If it doesn't impact millions of lives, then I don't think it is disruption. Let me put it in a simple way. If I am smart, if people around me are not smart, I don't think it's a disruption happening with me. It should be millions of lives should get disrupted. With this, let me tell you a story. Let me talk about one food. So if you see the food fraud globally, it is 42 billion USD. India contributes 1/4 of the food fraud. So 10 billion is a food fraud. Let it be your midday meal, let it be your Maggi fiasco, let it be anything, let it be country liquor, or let's say your even drug expiry of dates, right? So then let me come to one more report. If you see 10 in 1 people, globally I'm talking about, let's say we have got 6.8 billion people, that means 6-8 million people, they fall sick or ill by consuming contaminated food. Very simple, packaged food, right? And out of 680 million people, 420 people, they die every year. Let me come back to our kids, those who are less than 5 years old. 40% of our kids, less than 5 years, they are always having that foodborne disease. And the realistic news, if you see 125,000 kids that die every year because of consuming that contaminated feed. So what does that mean, I mean to say? Let's say I had my breakfast, or you had biscuit, or you had Maggi, or whatever, right? Or let's say it's medicine, right? So if I doubt, or let's say talk about Indian scenario, let's say your midday meal, right? So if you found anything on counterfeit, can you reverse track? Let me put it in a very simple way. We have farm to fork. Can you do the fork to farm? Can you reverse track it? Let me talk about. Let's say you have your farming, agriculture. It comes to the manufacturing, yeah, where it all get packaged food. It goes pushed to the market through retailer, and ultimately it comes to the consumer, and we come and eat, right? So if anything, let's say anything you found, okay, this is not genuine. Can you? It can be a milk, it can be a Maggi, it can be anything. Can you reverse track it? So that animal we talk about blockchain. Yes, you can do that. So what does it mean? Let's say you have your farming data. Let's say we talk about agri-tech, IoT for agriculture, all IoT data there, right? Once you come to the soft floor or manufacturing, we have your manufacturing data. Then once you push to your market, your retailer, all data are there, right? So what is blockchain? My friend Shravan talked about, right? So it's a decentralized distributed ledger, right? So if every data comes to the blockchain, of course you can reverse track. So you can entirely reverse track where exactly that particular apple or orange or anything is really manufactured and who is the farmer, right? So that I am talking about. The moment we will implement that, I'm sure the trust with the brand or manufacturer will definitely, So I forgot to ask you before that, have you smiled today? Have you really smiled today? Each smile is related to your business. Of course, you will say business. Of course, then business also related to trust, right? So we recently, we recall management, we talk about one battery, right? Every airport, if you go, they ask, do you have that particular battery? It's not allowed in cabin baggage, it's not allowed in check-in baggage, right? And talk about the recent airline fiasco. Or you talk about in Korea and Japan, the recall happening with vehicles, right? So really the recalls and the counterfeit products really impacting the brand and its reputation. So I'm sure the blockchain will definitely create, or minimize, or you can even zero the gap between a buyer and seller, right? So with this, I have a couple of stories to talk about. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I think as he kind of pointed out, in the entire supply chain, it helps you get the transparency out across the various participants who are there. It also helps the customer to look at authenticity, and Sugata, you could probably cover around the authenticity part of it.
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Damodar, for giving insight about the blockchain. Okay, so let me put the topic in a different way. So blockchain, initially, it was very reactive in nature. Means, as Damodar said rightly, that when you are tracking a food and you are going to backtracking the entire supply chain, you are finding the source in your fingertips from where it's originated. But there is a solution. We can extend the blockchain a little bit more to protect the product of food proactively, where we can use the anti-counterfeit technology. Okay, so anti-counterfeit technology, where we can just scan the product, scan the SKUs, and your mobile device or your iPad, anything, can tell you about the product, whether it's fake, whether it's genuine, or it's genuine but stolen. So how it will help the people to not to get into sick before taking the food into you, and you can check it whether it's genuine or not. Recently, there was an incident 3-4 months back in West Bengal itself. The packaged drinking water, the reputed brand of packaged drinking water, found fake bottles. Okay, so this is not very exceptional case that we are facing. Every time we are facing this kind of fake products in food and beverage vertical. Not only food and beverage, there are a lot of electronics goods also fakes we are receiving. Suppose you want to buy something which you know that this would be cost around 50,000 or 60,000, is very costly product, but you don't know whether it's genuine or not. If it's the supply chain is going through a proper channel and you are purchasing from a particular authorized retailer or dealer, then you know, okay, fine, this is not counterfeit, this is a genuine one. But to ensure to ensure that the product is genuine, if you have such a application that we do have in Arodek, that if you scan the product with its barcode, QR code or serial number, in fact in an image also you can process, and it will tell you about the product, it's a cosmetic, whether it's cosmetic, whatever could SKUs, so it will tell you that whether it's fake or genuine. Like another incident I can tell you about that cosmetics. Cosmetics is very much you'll find in the market in the counterfeit. Okay, so in a colony in UP, one colony, one room, one guy has taken, and they are manufacturing the cosmetics with a reputed brand, and they are putting the genuine labels. Okay, and it's a viral video in the Facebook and all the internet. So how to protect the public health and safety, and also it's an indirect revenue loss of the company. And in Dubai, there is another incident. One basketball manufacturer in US sending basketballs to a Dubai exclusive traders. They are only the company who is trading the basketballs to the UAE market. Okay. Suddenly, after 1 year, they found that demands of Sports Authority of UAE or the customers are not that much from the previous year. So from 1 lakh, it's going down to 20,000 only. Then they have found there's another supplier from China. They are supplying same basketballs to UAE market through a different trade channel, which is totally counterfeit. Okay, so we need to have a system or application in a different level to protect the counterfeit. Okay, which is directly, it can save your revenue, your brand is very important. You protect your brand, and also finally the public health and safety. So extending that blockchain into the counterfeit technology, which can give good benefit to the end customer. Not only that, with the benefit of the counterfeit, if you imagine technology like IoT. In IoT also, you can integrate with the different blockchain blocks to give the quicker turnaround time, and after that end of everything, final data collected in the big data, and you can do the analytics. And zone-wise, you can find a lot of things in your plate, that where you are getting the secondary sales data, you are getting the counterfeit data. So you can mitigate all this kind of risks through the counterfeit technology. Okay, right. So this is, Shravan, you can take it up.
Sure, great. So what we kind of covered till now has been one example of blockchain where it has been used to take care of your identity and keep your identity safe. An example where it has helped you track as businesses how the product moves across the value chain. And third, as as Sugata pointed out, as a consumer, to safeguard yourself against both a counterfeit product, and as a brand to see that you are able to see there are not a lot of counterfeit products sold on your name. What probably we'll spend a little more time now going forward is to see how governments are kind of looking at this technology to help the overall consumer across levels. One of the things which typically has happened, especially for a country like us which is developing, is that if your consumer is not empowered enough, there's a lot of exploitation which happens, which is very common in developing countries like us. And the very fact that if there is a technology that can take care of trust independent of the person on both sides, it really helps you to see that there is no shortchanging happening of the consumer. So what we typically, based on our implementation across, and we work with a lot of governments, have seen that one of the biggest case study for when it comes to blockchain is around land registry. So what typically you would find is that you have many claims to the same land. There is no tracking of the land, and there are various issues that typically are facing. And we have seen many governments, so internationally and in India as well, which are right now looking at using blockchain and a tracking mechanism, including GPS, etc., to define your land registry, digitize it, and store it in a way post which it can then be used whenever required. What it does is it gives you the authenticity, because once it has been registered and it has been validated with a proper key by the government, which they then share a key with the whoever is the owner, there's no way of any person again putting a claim on the same land, right? And what we are seeing is that once you're able to get this clear, transparent way in, it opens a whole new area for many other applications to come in. For example, when it comes to bank, one of the reasons why you are seeing not many loan on assets is because it's very difficult to determine the right ownership and to enforce it. But once you've got all of this onto a blockchain, you will be able to not only identify who's the right person, but also enforce it, because over a period of time, the blockchain, once the bank gives a loan, the key will go on and pass on to the bank, and hence whenever he wants to execute it, he can kind of execute it and not really just depend on the original owner to help him out. So that's one example that we've seen when it comes to governments. And Damodar, if you could talk about other examples that we are seeing in government.
Sure. Thank you, Shravan. Sugata tempted me to talk about one quick story on blockchain in IoT. And IoT is not new to India. And our previous speakers talk about IoT, security in IoT. So at this moment, if you see India sales, of course, last 20 years I have worked for manufacturers, worked with manufacturers. So my entire thing is all manufacturing. And blockchain, if you ask a couple of my friends, I was asking before taking the role, they talk about blockchain means only fintech. It's not. But blockchain has gone beyond fintech. If you ask me, my present conversation with customers is majorly into manufacturing, both in discrete and process, right? It is starting from aerospace to industrial manufacturers to consumer to high-tech to even semiconductor. So let me talk about one India story. A story means I can force you a story. Let's say if you see recently government has declared by 2030, there won't be any petrol or diesel car, all electric car, right? This is government saying, right? So India sells 2.5 million cars per year, right? And we talk about IoT, connected car, right? So I'm not going to talk about connected car, what is, how it is. And I talk about disruption means it should impact millions of lives. So I'm always, my talk will be around that only, right? So let's say by 2030, we all are on electric connected car. Mahindra is already there. Let's say all cars are connected in India. You have electric car, then you need a lot of charging stations, right? And I don't think BPCL, IOCL, SPCL kind of company will, nothing against them, but of course, every city, every street, you have to have a charging station. Maybe like Canada and Europe, maybe government will authorize me, you and all citizens to put your charging station. Maybe you will have a solar energy. I'm just asking to foresee 2030. Maybe it will happen before that. And let's say you have connected car, you have a charging station. As a consumer, I have put my charging station in front of my house. It is maybe solar, whatever, right? And that means what? I have some billing system in place. I have some consumption system in place. Then car will come, let's say it will charge. Let's say I will have different fares, day, purses, happy hours, whatever you talk about, right? And it charges. Of course, I cannot employ a guy to stay, watch, take cash. Of course, we are talking about digital, cashless economy. And let's say get charged and gone, right? And how that entire billing system, then customer trust between, let's say I'm selling, somebody is buying, that can be, build the trust. So I can say this again, blockchain. Let me go beyond this. Let's say my previous speakers earlier, they talk about the usage-based insurance. Let's say he has told bad driver, good driver, right? Let's say I'm sure India is also coming on the way, your usage-based insurance, right? The moment you are on connected car, your government will definitely, your OEM will monitor your driving pattern. And based on your driving pattern, they will profile you whether it's a good driver, bad driver. And its insurance also will decide, how you drive, how you are good in, So pay per kilometer or pay as you go kind of thing, insurance will definitely come up. And not only that, and in India, we are majorly famous for road accident, reckless driving, restless rocker, you talk about. Then if that comes and let's say I'm a bad driver and let's say government will tell me, okay, you put this bad driver profiling. Let's say they will profile me as a bad driver means red, moderate means let's say blue, green, So let's say I will be forced to put some bad driver symbol in my windshield. So definitely, no, I'm just asking you to foresee what will happen. Definitely, if government will say you are a red, And people driving around me, they will, hey, he's a bad driver going, right? So see that the consequences come. And it is really valid for company, I mean, in country like us, because largely we are populated, still we have not gone, though Uber, Ola, they are creating a disruption, but still we want to own a car. And I don't know how far it will be, right? We will get into the sharing economy. And usage-based insurance, then government, then accident. If anything accident happens, this car is connected to a command center, so immediately forget about the insurance, at least the emergency rescue system will work. Like in European government, they have got E-call, B-call, emergency call, breakdown call. And not only that, we talk about pollution. If you see, Delhi is actually on gas, right? Even Bangalore is not left behind. Bangalore is also, it is actually catching up this pollution because of highly populated cars, no? So I'm sorry, I think we have time. And then how that will be taken care of? Let's say your car data, connected data, your charging station, your insurance, your pollution, right? So if everything is all decentralized ledger, right, digital ledger, I'm sure the blockchain will definitely play a very critical role here and with clarity, and I'm sure this is actually impact the citizens, and you and me will get benefit out of it. Why Delhi government will say you have to scrap your diesel car beyond 10 years? If I maintain my car well, if my emission is well in control, then why should I scrap? Right? If your car is connected, definitely you will get that report. So I'm sure that one. And coming back to one story which Shravan talked about, let's say in India, we have really problem on birth and death certificate. It is still not interconnected. Let's say talk about your municipality or your panchayat or your hospital where you are born. And of course, we all talk about Aadhaar, right? So if Aadhaar, hospital record, put it everything, then definitely you will get your, I mean, no, that will be a better control on your death and, birth and death. So that is also one of the citizen service by the government. And I was very fortunate to talk to Mr. Sushil Kumar Modi in the afternoon, and I was giving this idea, and he told it's really interesting. Of course, he asked me what is blockchain, but I told him let me meet Rahul Singh, his IT secretary. So it's really, I mean, if you see this, I mean, personally, I'm engaged with government of Andhra, Rajasthan government, and of course, here also in West Bengal government. So it's really interesting, and governments are coming up with the blockchain in e-governance, and I'm sure all the government will catch up and they will implement blockchain in e-governance.
You want to cover something, Sugata, on the side that you believe would be there?
Yeah, actually, since most of the topics, most of the details are already covered by Damodar, but thing is that not only in the government's policy, we need a policy, okay, to make this blockchain enable in our state, not only state, in our country as well. Since in Dubai 2020, this Dubai 2020, government made this mandatory. You all the companies, every company, every traders need to be there in the blockchain network, okay. And also there's a initiative taken by Global Tax Advisory Team to make the blockchain mandatory instead of tax paying globally. So that might be also applicable for India in future. But again, so there should be a drive from the government where all these kind of possibilities that we are discussing, that could be implemented, okay. But if you are not thinking about the government to making the policy, but as an individual, as a CIO or a CXO, anyone can think about their product to make, to protect their brand, okay. If it's a food product, then you can protect the brand, protect the foods, also the perishable foods, or we're transporting the food from one country to another country and the perishable products or anything in medicine. So nowadays the IoT is enabled to track the temperature, the quality of the food and the quality of the medicine throughout the transit so that it could be recorded in the blockchain ecosystem. Okay, so it's giving the entire transparency to the end consumer as well as the dealer and other stakeholders so that they'll get the entire visibility of the particular product, right? So government is playing a bigger role to make the blockchain mandatory for the state and the country. But awareness from our side as a CXO level, we should think about to protect at least the one part of the blockchain to protect the health, protect the life, okay, and to protect the brand and to stop the revenue loss from their product. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sugata. So just to conclude on what we kind of discussed were first around the kind of use cases that we've seen in blockchain across industries, uh, specifically looking at how it can help you take care of your identity. Second, how it can help you take care of the food that you have. Third, how it can help you take care of the material that you're transporting across. And finally, what we are seeing, which is how governments are looking at using blockchain technology to empower the normal citizens who are, you know, especially the ones who do not have access the way we do over here. So I think we've spoken a lot. We would like to have any questions around blockchain or around whatever discussions that we've had. Anyone has any questions? Happy to.
Hello. Thanks for the insightful discussion. I just want to know in the blockchain concept, if a user requests for a block in the P2P network, it propagates to all the different nodes, and the nodes needs to validate whether the user is authenticated to do the validation. In case of non-transactional use cases that you are talking about, say activity-based use cases, so what are the algorithms we mainly use for those validations?
One part, the example that you gave is called a public blockchain. So that's what a cryptocurrency was, which was a public blockchain where a consensus was required, where all nodes had to validate. Most of the applications that we are currently seeing are more of a private blockchain, where what you've done is you've kept the concept of having it decentralized, but it is not based on a consensus mechanism where every person in that node has to validate it for it to work. And taking it forward, a typical pure blockchain is normally a chain. What we are seeing is a lot of applications are an hybrid of both a blockchain and a typical RDBMS kind of an implementation. So, to put it in short, there are multiple architectures which are being right now looked at for depending on the application that you have. As Damodar was saying, when it comes to a supply chain application, it's not going to be a consensus mechanism. You'll never get it going. But if you're going to be looking at something like something which is more like a loyalty or a cryptocurrency kind of a solution, their consensus would be a very vital part of the solution.
Hi, I'm a blockchain consultant from Ericsson. So what I understand is that for blockchain to work, we need an ecosystem, a lot of partners onboarded into the ecosystem. So one of the curious questions which I got was, if everyone gets benefited, who pays for the blockchain initiative? So how do I make a business case? And why should only one company pay for it?
Okay, so from our experience, what I can tell you is blockchain works into typically either the value is generated for all, so you create a consortium for it, or you get the government to do it because he tells you to do it, nobody is going to say no. Yeah, so that's where I'm saying that either it's a regulatory initiative, and we are seeing regulators being very interested. As you know, RBI has also set up something like IDRBT where they've tried using blockchain for various applications. Same goes for in supply chain, where AMTOY is looking at blockchain and seeing how that can be used to simplify the supply chain flow across various intermediaries who are there in a typical 3PL kind of a logistics environment. And of course, as I said, government, which is kind of also looking at this. And the example that I gave was what I was talking about, right? The minute I've got my government having the land registry on your blockchain, you have effectively digitized your asset, and then you can have multiple applications where you will automatically get a lot of companies coming onto the blockchain. So right now it's in a nascent stage, and I'll say that there are 4 to 5 various consortiums which are emerging. So there's IBM, which has this Hyperledger. There is Ethereum, which is an open one. Bitcoin itself has 2 of them. Now they've spoked into 2. Then there are new ones like Corda, R3, etc., which are coming up. So at this moment, there's no global consortium or a global standard for implementation. And that's because, as I said, one of the things with the blockchain part, since it's come from a cryptocurrency and a consensus mechanism, you cannot say that all the applications that we are talking about can have just one standard to work on. So we see over a period of time, as more and more POCs are done and more regulation comes in, you'll have one of the two emerging. I mean, it's like any technology from your MP3s to your CDs. At every time there were 3 or 4 of them when it nascently started. By about 4 to 5 years, you'll see that 1 or 2 will survive and mature.
It's actually evolving technology. If you see yesterday, Mr. Sen talked about, right? I mean, in 1990, the moment we talk, I mean, imagining how the internet will really disrupt the entire industry. Similarly, blockchain will take some time to evolve. And of course, we will have our regulation. Like IoT, if you talk about 5, 6 years ago, absolutely not. Right? People are all doing standalone, or every enterprise, they will have a different standard, right? But if you talk about now, we are coming up with some standardization, interoperability. So similarly, blockchain definitely will take some time to evolve. Yeah.
Hi, this is Kaushik. I am from PwC. I lead the blockchain lab there. So I have a query, like as you were telling, the government will control the blockchain. Now the most important thing from blockchain perspective is decentralization, right? It's a P2P network. So what is your take on that? Is the government is controlling the thing? How do we get that decentralization or P2P?
So when I meant controlling, it's not going to be controlling it, it's going to put the framework in. The thing with the blockchain to understand is, while it's a technology, you need to understand that at the end, I'm not going for a consensus mechanism. So it's not going to be like you taking your hyperledger and just putting it on. It would mean that you need to put a structure in place where you will be defining who are the key players, who are the key authorizers, like, who do I give the authority to do it. Now, one is to define this. Second is to get a person to say, please follow it. The government is the agency which is actually, government or a regulator, in this case, is the agency which is trying to say, please follow it. But the rules are defined by the consortium which is put into place. So the government is not going to tomorrow say and put the blockchain, create its own blockchain, define that I will be the only guy who will authorize. He will put just a framework in place where he will define that these are the 3 types of people who can be there. And if there is an X transaction, 4 people have to validate. An example which I was giving in a land registry, tomorrow, if I take a case of a bank trying to collateralize an asset, it will be basically that the bank will be going onto that platform, it will be providing its validation, and it will wait for a validation coming from the government, which then tells the bank that it's an authentic document that has been provided by the owner who's come to show it to him. So when I meant controlling, it's not exactly that they're controlling, it's just they're enabling it. See, at the end, one is a frame, to put a frame, and I can tell you there are n number of frames we worked across, most of them. But the person who can actually make all the people in the ecosystem follow it is typically the ones who either you create a consortium, everybody agrees, or you have a regulator or a government doing it.
Hello, my name is Imtiaz. I have a couple of questions. Why can't we handle all these things in the present ERP systems or any digital system? And my second question is, if you're moving to blockchain, so we all know that blockchain is a time-stamped system. So everything is time-stamped. So how are you going to move the data from existing system to blockchain?
So if you talk about the ERP system, so ERP system is basically to, if you think about the standalone ERP system, say SAP is one of the good product in ERP system. So it's internally document flow and workflows are there, right? So through the internally document flow and workflow, the internal stakeholders are managed. In different, all the ERPs, definitely you will find the reference document, successive document, and it's assigned to the reference document. Preceding documents, right? So one is linked with another. It doesn't mean this is blockchain, but once we are communicating with the outside of the ERP system. Say it's not a homogeneous environment, it's a heterogeneous environment. So SAP or any ERP needs to communicate with the outside of its system. So in that case, have an architecture in blockchain. If you're using the platform as Savan said, that Hyperledger, okay, or in future Microsoft is coming up with the Coco framework. So this kind of this framework platform could be integrated with the ERP system. Either it depends on the ERP, whether the ERP is giving you the permission through the middleware. Okay, for SAP it should be the process orchestration or native gateway, or other things like in the other ERP system you can also use the API or web services or the ODBC connectivity.
Yeah, so I'll probably put it in a way, probably you might appreciate this. You've seen all ERP systems. I'll tell you, all ERP systems are based on a concept called RDBMS, where there's a master and there are transactions. So whoever controls the master is the guy. When you look at blockchain, he's basically said that every transaction has its own master. Effectively, what you're saying, when you look at a blockchain implementation, by having an authentication key put into it, you're effectively changing it to saying, I want to create a master for every transaction which has, and those masters will be the guys who I have defined as a rule which will change based on the type of transactions. So this, what it effectively does is you don't need a place where a master is kept and there is a owner of the master who is effectively controlling everything. That's how trust is being built, right, at the end, when it comes to a blockchain. Hence, in an ERP system, can it be implemented with a flow? Yes. Can it be done through various applications? Yes. But at the end, the whole authenticity, which is the fact that it is distributed and non-tamper proof, because there are multiple authorities who are controlling the master, the trust factor is far higher than an ERP system. So I can tomorrow, like in a simple example, I'm saying you have your land records, you have a master lying with the government, somebody goes and changes the master in the government. Your all land records are changed in an ERP. You have all workflows, everything there.
So there are instances in ERP where you have decentralized database. So not necessarily you will have database at one place.
Yeah, but your master is still a single one. It is not changing with every transaction. So if you want to check, for example, if tomorrow then I want to check it, I'll have to check all the transactions with every master entry to say that my master is not corrupted. The way the blockchain is defined, for every master and for every transaction master, I can effectively check it for every transaction there and then. I don't need to do a whole checking and then backup syncing and finding all of that.
Hi, this is Shubham. I just one question. On financial services, we are talking about KYC or land documents, etc. What are the other use cases you are seeing in financial services on blockchain?
Yeah, so one's around onboarding. Second is insurance is also looking at it blockchain, where, so basically the biggest example of blockchain are smart contracts, where what you're saying is the contracts will get executed on a certain specific conditions met. So when it comes to BFSI, there are a lot of spaces where we see these smart contracts can be applied on. So one example, of course, is of the KYC. There's insurance, where health can be looked at. Another area where we're seeing is the loyalty space, where to an extent, I can have my loyalty ecosystem defined in such a way that it just doesn't remain in point. And this is an example of cryptocurrency, as I said, where you can also use coins instead of having just the loyalty points. So in BFSI space, we've seen multiple applications emerge like this. One of the interesting application which has already been done in Australia is the whole part of securitization of your business. So somewhere right now we have the whole mechanism of going through the IPO route and getting yourself registered and people investing in. So in Australia they've tried an example where they've said when it comes to businesses which are looking to raise very small amount in a local area, let's set up a blockchain mechanism through which people can just buy into those stocks and they have the ownership in it. And since it's it's hosted on a blockchain, it's far more trustworthy for the people who are there. So that's another example that we are seeing when it comes to securitization and brokerage, where it's picking up.
Even in royalty program, if you talk about, right, there also insurance or financial institutions. If you go beyond even fintech, not just to answer your questions, let's say leasing, or let's say contract. He talked about the smart contract, right? So let me give you one example in European market. In India, let's say we have yellow plate and white plate, right? Your commercial and your passenger cars are segregated, right? But if you talk about other industry, where I should not name Uber, but let's say they have authorized even your passenger car also can be put on their platform, right? So how that, this is a leasing model, right? So you are just leasing your car, no? So how that entire billing system, then leasing, then the customer trust, you may not drive, maybe somebody will drive that car. I'm just, again, coming back to manufacturing because I normally work with manufacturers. So that way actually blockchain is really playing a role in those markets, and I'm sure it will come back to India soon.
I think we have
just a question, yeah. How do you see existing ERPs changing their architecture to fall in line in case if this is the way of the future? Existing ERPs which are typically enterprise-centric, internal-looking, but now that you're talking about an open-ended and a much wider chain, how do you see that changing?
Any ERP system, basically, to manage the enterprise business, means internally you can manage your different processes, right? So when you are talking about the blockchain, we are just going one step ahead, okay? On top of ERP, when you're talking about the blockchain, it is the integration of different systems, not only the ERP system. Suppose along with the ERP, you are using some system for the trade logistics, okay? You're managing your logistics for import, export and all. So considering that system, along with the ERP system, a lot of other systems like HRM is also running along with your ERP system. So in taking the whole system together and integrating with the blockchain platform, and also the external stakeholders, the consensus where your supplier and supplier of supplier you want to integrate, or your customer and the customer of customer, means secondary sales you want to capture. So all this integration, ERP nowadays, in any good ERP can give you the leverage you can ERP to integrate that ERP with the middleware or through the different integration methodology. So where definitely in blockchain always requires an event to be triggered. Okay, it's all depending upon the event. So once event is getting triggered from your source system, automatically the data or the transaction with your you can say shared ledger. This is a master that someone said for this blockchain platform. So it will trigger and it will create the event and create a smart contract into the blockchain environment. So automatically the entire transaction will be integrated and it will create a different set of blocks on top of your ERP system and all other system.
All right, I think that's the end of the QA session which we had. And at this point of time, may I please request our Associate Vice President, Human Resources of ABP Private Limited, Mr. Shumon Banerjee, to kindly step forward and present the mementos to our panelists for this session. And thank you, gentlemen. That was definitely a very informative session for all of us here. Thank you, gentlemen.